A quick trip through some of the experiences we've had with close encounters of the fifth kind. Are we good to go, Neil? Lance? Yeah. Okay. And to describe it, now that we've gone through this material, you can begin to understand why the techniques and the protocols that we're using are effective. But let me connect a few dots before we go into this next section where I'm going to show a bunch of images. If you understand that an interstellar civilization have mastered the science of consciousness and their interface with technologies, it's not hard to figure out that if you enter into an expanded state of consciousness, can remote view their location or sense where they are, and then with a coherent intent show them or invite them to come visit, they will. And the reason it's not magic and it's not tinfoil hat stuff, it's because the technologies that have been developed over thousands and millions of years, and some of them, when you get to the level 8, 9, 10, those are in the neighborhood of 1 billion Earth years advanced from where we are technologically, billion with a B. So you have civilizations that have capabilities that, as Arthur C. Clarke said, any civilization sufficiently advanced to get here from another star system, everything that they would have would look like magic to us. But let's go back in time to the time of Thomas Jefferson and the late 1700s, early 1800s. This would be magic. The idea that you could have a device like this, or on your wristwatch, Dick Tracy, and be seeing someone or having, do what, FaceTime or video conferencing or streaming from something like this would be absolutely unimaginable and would be something from another world. More than likely, you'd be burned at the stake as a witch or a warlock or something. So we have to have some humility about the fact that our civilization, in terms of the dominant disclosed paradigm of technology and science, is really based in the 1800s. Cell phones, linear electromagnetic systems that are speed of light or less, that's mid to late 1800s. Internal combustion engines, late 1800s. Coal-fired power plants, late 1800s, early 1900s. Even your atomic energy, nuclear energy plants, you're splitting an atom, creating a lot of heat to turn up a turbine, steam turbine, like a choo-choo train going across, coming out west here in the 1860s. That's all it is. You're not, a lot of people think you're getting electricity from the atom. You're not. You're just boiling water. That's all an atomic nuclear plant is. So our paradigm is locked in late 1800s up to, but no further than 1945. And everything else is tinkering around the edges. Now extrapolate what our civilization would be like had there been disclosure of sort of trans-dimensional physics, early experiments in electromagnetic levitation systems from the 20s from T. Townsend Brown, et cetera, and so on and so forth. We would have eliminated poverty, had no pollution, had a stable, Malthusian crisis would be fixed. So with the abundance would come universal education. Women wouldn't be chattel. They wouldn't be having 12 children against their will. And you would have a stabilized population and an advanced civilization with no pollution and no poverty within 20 to 30, 40 years. So all of this is possible theoretically, but only within the paradigm of peace. And the policy discussions I've had with Air Force guys and CIA guys is that, do you understand how powerful these technologies are? Because if they're in the wrong hands, it could destroy this planet. I say, yes, of course. It is in the hands of the wrong people already, and we are destroying the planet. So we're on the horns of a dilemma here. We either go forward or we slide down. And that's this difficulty of 0 to 1 transition. We have to make this transition happen, and it will. I'm confident it will, one way or another. But in the meanwhile, we need to understand that these civilizations that are observing the planet are concerned about where we are and where we're headed. And those civilizations have been around for anywhere from 6-digit, 100,000 to 1 billion years longer than we have. So their technological capabilities, the minimum of them, is that they have an interface with coherent thought field coming from expanded consciousness. And so the evolution of the close encounters of the fifth kind techniques happened about 6 months after I had my near-death experience. I was up in North Carolina, up in the mountains, and the Blue Ridge Mountains up above this little town of Boone, North Carolina, out in the boondocks. And there was a Forest Service road that was closed at the bottom. You could hike up to this a little over 5,000 foot high mountain called 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Mountain, at the top of which was a fire tower. That's fire tower in Carolina East. So I hiked up to the fire tower and went up there to meditate. So I sat, well, that's what they call it, a fire tower. Lovely. So I was sitting at the base of this thing, and I was getting ready to do a meditation. I looked out to the southwest, and there was this seamless, beautiful, disc-shaped ET craft that materialized. It's the same craft I saw when I was 8 or 9 that got me interested in all this when I was a young child. Knew it was the same. I said, oh, well, they're back. I didn't think anything more about it. I'm an 18-year-old guy. I sit down, I'm doing the meditation, and I go into this deep, deep, deep samadhi meditation with a mantra I was using, and there was no time. It's just like I was in this state of just unbounded mind. And then at the end, I came out of meditation, and it got very dark. It had gone from sunset to just pitch, and that's quite a while. This was October '73. And I'm looking, I look up at the stars, and I see the entire Milky Way galaxy. You know how you see it? And a thought came in that said, behold what a beautiful universe God has made. And with that, I went straight into the Brahman consciousness and unity consciousness, that state I was in when I died. But I was now in my physical body. I said, oh, this is nice, and beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then I realized there was this thing, I didn't know what it was, a creature that in my little, 18-year-old mind, well, it wasn't so little, but I didn't have the experience. I thought it was a deer standing upright and had beautiful deer-like eyes. And it came over and touched me on my right shoulder. I was wearing a ski jacket, and I saw it indent. But then it kind of dematerialized, and I had this electrostatic field all over me. And my hair stood on end, and that's when I had hair. It was long hair. This was '73, you have to be there. And so, bang, and I vanished. So I sort of dematerialized and went onto a ET craft for the next 3 or 4 hours. And what we were doing together, we were meditating together in this state of deep consciousness and samadhi, and I was sharing with them the experience as a human, experiencing samadhi and Brahman higher consciousness. And then we co-created this technique where one could connect to consciousness, then remote view space, find where the ET craft are, and then vector them in, like you're guiding an aircraft onto the runway at San Francisco airport or someplace, but using coherent thought that's very stream of consciousness, very clear, like a laser. It's coherent light, very coherent thought. And show them where you are, and show them where you are on the earth, and invite them to come within the ethical construct of universal peace and the oneness of conscious intelligence that is the base foundation of universal relations between humans and non-human civilizations. And that's the state of universality, which is the state of pure consciousness, which happily is folded within all of us. That's the beauty of this. This is already, everything we need is already there. So this experience lasted for quite some time, and I had no idea how much time went by. And it was really beautiful. It was very abstract. People said, what did you talk about? Well, we're not having bagels and lox and talking about politics. It was direct contact and experience based on deep transcendent consciousness and packets of knowledge that are pre-verbal and pre-visual. So I want to explain what I mean by that. You have consciousness that's unbounded within us. Information can be obtained. You can sometimes just get the word in a meditative remote view or see a remote place. But more elemental to that is knowingness. It's a packet of knowledge. And there's actually something in the Vedas called, in Sanskrit, the Ritambara Pragya, the level of Ritam, where in the fine structure of consciousness, you can know anything or know any one thing. Now the great being knows all things at all times, but an individual can access Ritam. But knowledge can also come to you and you can communicate at that level that is pre-visual and pre-verbal. So example, I can say the word red, 2 words, red apple. In your mind, you can see a red apple. But inside the meaning of that word and the image of it is the essence of what that is, the knowledge of what that is. I know it sounds abstract. That level of communication happens a lot. And then you get a knowledge at that level, and then it unfolds into an image or it unfolds into a word or a sentence. But the primary is at that level, and that's what we're doing all the time. We're communicating. We're actually, words are a symbol for something that is meaning. And then what is the meaning? But we never think about it. We never deconstruct what's happening. But that can happen at an interstellar level or an interspecies level. You can do it with dolphins, you can do it with your dog, then you can do it with fellow humans, and you can do it with interstellar civilizations. The interesting thing is interstellar civilizations happen to have technologies that interface with that strata of conscious intelligence, thought stuff. Does that make sense? And seamlessly. So in our Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind process, we enter into meditative states, go into deep meditation. When we're very centered and calm, then allow ourselves to see a remote view where any ET craft or people or planets are. And we're just, whatever you're drawn to. At that point, you connect to them and then invite them to be and we say that we're an ambassador from Earth to your people, and we're here in peace, in universal peace, with the foundation of which is that we're experiencing the clear light of unbounded mind as a singularity. And because the light of consciousness coming from their eyes and the light of consciousness from our eyes, that is a singularity. The total number of minds in the universe is 1. So once you understand that and you're in that state, experientially, but also ethically, there are no aliens. That's why our motto is 1 universe, 1 people. There's actually 1. Okay, so 1 universe, 1 people is our motto. So when you're in that state and you're beyond the fear state, you're not afraid of them because, as Arjuna was told by Krishna on the battlefield, a little of this, capital T, meaning this pure state of consciousness, eliminates all fear. That's the other beautiful thing about a group meditation. You transcend, let's call it our animal fight or flight nature, and get into this aspect of yourself that's immortal, eternal, unbounded, infinite. So in that state, the drop of yourself becomes the ocean. And as the drop is united with the ocean, or let's say a wave on the surface of the ocean, you might be a wave or a ripple, is connected to the whole ocean that is infinite, then you have no fear. That's the Shambhala warrior state. That's the state of fearlessness that's spoken about in spiritual traditions. It's one reason why I'm not afraid. I mean, you just go there. But so when you're in that state, then your nervous system and your mind, consciousness, everything can withstand the strangeness, which can be strange, of contact that happens on multiple dimensions from other star systems. Okay? It's really important to understand that the technique of meditation and being centered in that state isn't just philosophical, it's an operational system that is the prerequisite to being a Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind ambassador to these other civilizations. And the reason I called it Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, there were 4 other categories previously described prior to 1990 when I founded this project. And of course, Close Encounter of the First Kind is a sighting at fairly close range of an ET craft or UFO. Close Encounter of the Second Kind is when it leaves some sort of physical evidence when it's landed. Close Encounter of the Third Kind, you remember Steven Spielberg's movie, is in contact with an actual extraterrestrial being. Close Encounter of the Fourth Kind is when people have experienced going on board or a craft. A Close Encounter of the Fifth Kind is the first category where the human initiates the contact. All right, in other words, it's no longer a passive paradigm, it's an active paradigm. Very big jump, by the way, between passively seeing, touching, or going, and actively inviting with full consciousness of why you're doing it. Now, the key thing is to do it within this, for the purpose, not some selfish reason. Oh, I want to see one to be entertained, like you go to SeaWorld and see dolphins, that kind of thing. That's the wrong mindset. They're not interested in immature souls that way. The interest would be in people who are doing it for coming together as a people to move us from a level 0 to a level 1 to a level 2 to a level 4 to a level 8 civilization. Understanding this is the trajectory of the next 500,000 years of human evolution on planet Earth. So doing it for the correct purpose that isn't self-centered, narcissistic, etc., is very important. Not to say you're not curious, not to say you don't have personal interest, you should, but that shouldn't be the be-in all of it. It shouldn't be everything. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So then when you're in that state and you practice this technique and protocol, which on our website, SiriusDisclosure.com, S-I-R-I-U-S, disclosure.com, we have, meditation tapes, training, all the training materials is there. And we have an app. You can go to the either iPhone or Google store, and there's an app you can download that takes you through all the meditations and all the techniques. And it's great because we've had people, I had a Croatian truck driver write us last year, or maybe a year before, and he had the app. Never had met me personally. He was pulled over at a rest place that was in the mountains, and turned on the app and did the meditation, and an extraterrestrial vehicle materialized and came right over his truck. We have thousands of reports like this. So what I'm saying is, it works. It's not difficult to do. You just have to do it with a pure heart, with the right intention, without fear, and just go into that flow consciousness. It's really very easy to do. So that's what we do, and I train people to do. We just got back from Mount Shasta, where we were up there for a week with a group of people, about 23 people. But that's something you can do at home. You can do it with a small team of people. It's easier if it's smaller, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. The more people you have, the harder it is to get into coherence, and then the more ego conflicts there are, et cetera, and so on, because we're still kind of like primates. The monkey mind, troops, tribes, ego, all that. But you can, it's easier to get that coherence in a small group than a larger group, unless the group is very evolved. So I recommend a smaller group approach, like-minded people. Do it with joy, do it with the right intention. Go someplace where, you and the craft won't be shot at by somebody if possible. That's a big issue. We've had it happen. We just had a site invasion up at Mount Shasta by 3 people the last night we were there 2 nights ago. So mainly because word got out I was in town, and it was just ridiculous. You lose your life when you do this. You lose your privacy, you lose your career, you lose everything. Well, but I did it knowingly. Anyway, redact that. The point I'm making is, it's very easily attainable. And why? Because that conscious field that's within you, if you go into quiet meditation, you can experience this pure quiet mind. And you don't have to have full samadhi, just centered quiet consciousness. And when you're in that place, intend to see and intend to know. And a knowingness or a vision may come. Connect then to that ET world, civilization, person, whatever it is, and introduce yourself, and somewhat with clarity and humility, invite them to where you are, and know. You need to also put out there you can appear in any way that is safe and appropriate for this time and place. Very important, because the entire Earth is surrounded by killer satellites. Just had a briefing. I was read into a whole series of state-of-the-art systems that have been put up. They've been operational in some form or another since 1965 that can track and target these ET craft. When they come out of trans-dimensional space-time into 3D, they send off a type of neutrino light, even when they're not fully materialized yet, and that can be tracked, and when they come into 3D, they're hit with electromagnetic pulse weapons and so-called scalar longitudinal weapons, and that's why so many have been knocked down. There have been hundreds of kills of ET craft, and those are they were land and sea and air and space on satellites that have these systems that can obliterate anything in space, by the way. Those are fully operational. So you have to have the understanding that they are operating in in the military would say, a hostile theater of operations, a very dangerous place, the world right now, because we haven't attained level 1 civilization. We're very much at a level 0. Classified projects. We had a man on our team who was a OR nurse for 30 years, and he had one of the doctors was a colonel that he worked with in surgery, and this issue came up with, and he just asked the colonel, he said, you know, if you had one of these craft come and land, what are you instructed to do? He says, we kill them. He said, we just shoot them, kill them, flat out. So that's the order, that's the world, and the technologies that have developed since the 40s and 50s to now. I don't have time to go into, I've gone into in the last 2 workshops I've done, the Phoenix one in May and the Boulder one in June. I can't go through all that again. That's 8 more hours of discussion, but those are fully operational and developed. And so just do this within the construct of knowing that you need to invite these civilizations to appear at this time in history in ways that may not be a Steven Spielberg movie landing, but it may be. It depends on what's being monitored, how they slip in. And everyone asks, why don't they just go ahead and switch those systems off? Could they? Of course. But that would be taken by the intelligence community and this sort of covert group as proof of their hostility. If I figured this out with my meager IQ, they have really figured this out. Because we're talking civilizations, equivalent human IQs, 400 or 500, in that range. So that's, you know, I'm the equivalent of a Down syndrome. Not even. Myself personally. So, and you know, but they've figured this out. They don't want to push that envelope because it will be used in a counterintelligence spin. And there's enough of that going on already with ufology and all the fear mongering and lunatic fringe out there, and the sky's falling and they're taking us and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's funny because since the 90s, I've been meeting with guys who've been on the abduction squads. That get on these Lockheed Martin and Northrop anti-gravity craft with these little creatures that are programmed life forms that look like aliens that go and abduct people. Going on, and they have electronic systems that knock people out and chemical systems. What you guys, whatever you think you know about this subject, erase, put it in a side, and then let's go forward. Because I would say the dominant information out there is disinformation designed to make people afraid, to create a new enemy. And the means for doing that were developed in the 1950s and have been deployed since the 1950s. So be very careful what you think are facts that are ascribed to extraterrestrial, because a great deal of it are counterintelligence operations for psychological warfare value from people who want to create the foundation of fear, separation, conflict, so that the next conflict would be interplanetary, as Douglas MacArthur said in 1950, I believe 55. World War III will be interplanetary. Now that whole decision-making process that happened between 45 and 55 is what the mess we're living through now. in that post-World War II era. I'm not going to get into a whole deconstruction of the last 75 years. I know it from the inside out from people whose families are involved and have been involved with the intelligence community since 1945. But I prefer for us to stay positive here and go into this next understanding. I'm just giving you this as a cautionary tale that not everything that goes bump in the night is extraterrestrial, and the intelligence community have technologies to simulate alien events that are very effective. And so don't bring out under the stars with your people this paradigm of division and fear. That is a sort of a programmable brainwashing system that's been operational since the 50s. And everyone in this room has lived in a culture of movies and video games and books and things that are designed to trap your mind in that paradigm of fear and division. So as the In Vogue group, free your mind. Don't you love that song? We should have it playing boom, boom, boom. It's a great, you know that song? Free your mind? Yeah, love it. All right, so now let's go to look at some images. I'm just going to take you on a quick trip. This is, if you want to dim the light so it's more visible, we can now. These incandescents, I know you need these Klieg lights for filming. Is that better? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is an object that came in from a team member who was in Wichita Falls, and this exact craft is seamless, has sort of a aperture here, these strange structures coming off of it. He was doing a CE-5 and this floated in and materialized and dematerialized, and it was sort of a reconnaissance vehicle. I got from the French Ministry of Defense a drawing of almost the exact same thing of a sighting in the 60s in France of this. Next. And this was a daytime CE-5 event. A member of our team, Ivy Blank in New Mexico, was doing these protocols, and she was outside Santa Fe. She didn't see anything, she felt it, because these are usually phasing and moving at speeds the human eye can't see, by the way. She took a picture, and there's this seamless dome disc that appeared about 30 feet wide, moving about 500 miles an hour, that it came in and zipped in and around. Oh, am I in your way?
Probably makes it harder on you, but if...
Where can I be?
We haven't figured out how to quite look.
Oh, see, I need that city where I become transparent. I've had it happen. Well, can I?
That's great, if that's not too out of
No, can you guys see?
Yeah.
Okay, I can still see. Can the camera guys see?
Thank you.
Hope you don't like being in the film.
Not at all.
Next. This is one of my favorites. Just happened about 9 years ago, 8.5 years ago in Joshua Tree National Park. This is an interstellar ambassador. He has sort of a it looks like a 𝗖𝗿𝗃𝗃 teleportation thing. That's where 𝗖𝗿𝗃s came from, by the way. On his head, this is an eye, that's an eye. He's wearing night vision goggles. His nose is lit up. He has a very fine mouth. He has a receding forehead like I do, and hair. This is his, this is his right hand, his left hand, and he was floating. You'll see the original picture in a moment. Outside, there was a orb that had come right beside my shoulder, and this is not a human light. This is a trans-dimensional light, and this being appeared partially in this environment. The wings, it looks like wings, it's not. It's the teleportation trans-dimensional energy that when you did the contrast you could see. So this is his head, his chest, waist, one leg, the other arm. And nothing was seen with the eyes. But we heard 4 or 5 ETs after this orb appeared beside my right shoulder, speaking right outside our circle. You could hear them talking, not English, I don't know what they were speaking, Andromedan, because they were from Andromeda Galaxy, they told us. And then one of our team members literally held her breath and took a picture, not on a tripod, and got this picture from where these 4 or 5 ETs were speaking. Most people heard all females. I heard one male, and it was this gentleman who told me his name was Bijou, and from Andromeda, and very, very connected, very high ambassador, probably a level 7 to 8 civilization from the Andromeda galaxy. So this is a picture of just the contrast turned up a little bit. You can see the chairs and where he is, and this is where we cut it out so you can show. Look at the size of his head from his eye. Oh, can you? I don't know what's happening here. There's from his head, from his eyes up, is about 3 to 4 times our cranial vault, right? And the front of his head have these like Worf, have these indented concave areas here and here. There are 2 concave areas on the front of the skull, and this is his head, this is his chest, this is his legs and his arm, and he has like night vision goggles or glasses on. His lip is right there, very fine lip, but he does have hair. Could almost look human, not quite, but similar to a human, and very, very highly intelligent. I asked him, I was sensing his consciousness and intelligence, and a very high state of enlightenment and IQ in the 450 range, around 450, that range. Next. Oh, we just saw that. Next. So this are just some examples going back years, 10 years ago. This is after there are any satellites visible, and we have these objects that'll come over and will signal, and then it will then send a beautiful, this is night vision. It's actually but blue-white light that comes in, and very beautiful. And this, we have thousands of hours of these, and it's you need to be sure you go out with a satellite chart, and preferably the times of year where you're up late enough after any satellites are visible, because they're in the shadow of the Earth, and there's no mistake. This is beautiful. Next. And then we have these spheres that appear. That's me wearing a coat. It was kind of cold. And there's clear sky, and an object materializes and signals back. You'll see. Yeah, it's beautiful. And then they can come in right into the ground in the forest. Sometimes you can have a sphere, and inside the sphere, if it came fully into 3D, be a massive ET craft. But often they'll stay in a form and also go right in front of the trees. These are right in front of us. Actually, my wife and I, this next one's so fun. Watch. Boom. It looks like a little lightning, but it's not. It's crystal clear conditions right in front of us. It comes in. So that's a craft. It's just bumping up again from the gap into this dimension coming in. And then they're going to be on the field around you. They may not be visible. They may be there in the near astral gap, or they may fully materialize. We've had ones fully materialize, flesh and blood, who have appeared and then vanished. Next. This is one of my absolute favorite of all time, just because it's so cool. We're in the field above us.
Oh my God.
We're doing the protocols. You can hear everybody gets excited. It's so cute, like children. But look, it lifts straight up right here.
Oh, yeah.
Goes up, turns left, partially dematerializes. The camera guy, brilliant. Let's track this. I helped him with my laser. And it comes over, and there it is, this. And it's doing this sort of movement and going in and out of space-time and vanishes. Now with the naked eye, seeing this, it lifts right up. Now watch this in slow motion. Up, right up from the field in front of us, up into the sky, and turns. There it is, this. It's a light ship. So civilizations that have evolved where they can shift between 3D, light, astral light, pure consciousness, no, the whole thing. That's what was up at Mount Shasta. Very advanced civilizations, very high levels of consciousness attainment. Next. Are these fun? Yeah. So this is interesting because this happened several nights. Just the last night we were there.
Look at that, beautiful. And it has a really white, it's like a star now. It's like one of these stars.
So we can mute that, the sound. But this is important because we just came down off the mountain, and but several nights we were up there, we had these objects coming out, and they were showing us that deep inside Shasta, there's a trans-dimensional interstellar facility. Smooth walls, just sort of diffusely lit, and there are various different civilizations connected to this volcano, Mount Shasta, which of course could become active, but there have been seen. This is in a sheer cliff area in Glacier, and nobody could stand there. And we had this happen the first night a week ago Saturday, and 2 or 3 other times that we were out there. The last night, Friday, when we were up there, we had in this exact same location one that was there for about half an hour until we had a site invasion from people who had recognized me in town, and we had to evacuate. But next. This I love. This is, I'm walking on the beach doing my kind of walking meditation, and a person takes this picture, feeling the craft, can't see it, and she, in the sky is a partially materialized disc, same object we'd seen the night before that came streaking out of the sky and went straight into the ocean. Here it is with the contrast enhancement. And it is a disc, and that ship, by the way, later, I'm not showing it in this series, appeared on the beach, partially materialized, but with 3 points of light. One was teal blue, one was white, and one was golden. And there were 3 beings in their pure consciousness form in an energy field that communicated. We filmed that for an hour. We have an hour of these things on the beach. And at the end of it, I walked into the energy field, and there was this beautiful shimmering light above me. The people saw me dematerialize. I didn't expect, but I had this experience, and I knew I could have gone with them, and I knew I shouldn't, so I was very emotional about it because, you know, I'm kind of stuck here. But anyway, so it was, I was just crying like a baby. Next. These are beautiful. This is very typical. We had this happen all the time. We're on the beach. You can hear the water, and this is a ship, a boat out here. This is nothing. There are lights on the Highway 12 on the outer banks of North Carolina barrier islands. And you heard our detector. We have electronics that will go off when the ETs are communicating or approaching us. And they're just simple. They're, you know, magnetometers, trifield meters, laser detectors like you'd have for cars for detecting police. And this object comes, look, lights up the whole ocean.
Oh, wow.
And another one.
Yeah, and this is remarkable because at the time it appears, there's beep, beep, because there's a trans-dimensional electronic discharge. The color of that was golden orange. This is a night vision camera, so all you see is greenish. But it was beautiful, beautiful. And look, when it's gone, nothing there. There's no satellite, no plane, nothing. So they come into this dimension and appear, and what you have to remember is when something like this is happening, look at the whole ocean's lit up like a full moon. It was very, very big, very bright. Is that they're really asking you to connect to them in consciousness into these other dimensions. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then have further contact.
Whoa.
Yeah, now watch this, how it moves. This went on for quite some time. In the middle of all this, we were being harassed by the federal park rangers, and they did a setup where they gave us permits for night fishing but not stargazing, so I got arrested, and they were going to put me in federal prison for 3 years. So I had to plead to 2 federal misdemeanors. That's why I can't get TSA pre-check or anything, because I'm a convicted, anyway, for praying for universal peace. I mean, it was a total setup. You know, so that's why I'm very cautious where I go now, because the federal Nazis have really done a number. Next. Welcome to my world. So this, we're in France. I'm doing a demonstration. It's about 60 people there for just a weekend. And the Ministry of Defense of France had a senior admiral there, and this comes in. It's not quite fully materialized. It's flat, sort of mauve colored. You see people turning, everyone saw this flash in. Luckily, a camera lens was open. And it was coming in because I was getting ready to do a Sanskrit Vedic ceremony and enter into meditation. It was still daytime, but everyone saw this sort of like multicolored rainbow come in. And the only thing that the camera picked up was this. Very strange, etheric, barely in this dimension disc. And it was, they're observing us a few feet above the ground, waiting for the meditation to start. So whenever we start the meditation process, and I have a ceremony I do in ancient Sanskrit, which predates any known language on earth, actually, from the Vedas. And the Vedas are not don't conflate the Vedic with Hindu, but I mean the Vedas predate any known organized religion. It's a philosophy of knowledge and the science of consciousness. And before I was a medical doctor, I was a Vedic scholar and Siddha and meditator and meditation teacher back in the 70s. So next. Then this is so beautiful because we're on this beach about 8 years ago, and I see this being come in. And you see the two eyes here, and it's sort of a crystalline structure. And these are beings that are at the level of a level 8, 9, 10 civilization. They have a physical presence, they have worlds, but it is so abstract, it's so rarefied. But it's a beautiful picture. Now people said, what is this halo? It's sort of a toroidal, like a toroid is like a donut, energy field that is created that they can then appear in. But this was visible with at the level of subtle perception, celestial perception, which develops when you meditate a lot. You can see these energies. And I asked someone, I said, there's a being standing right here. He takes a picture, and this is who's there. Very high level, at the level of, the civilization that's God consciousness, 7, 8, 9, 10, and above. Next. Then this is fun. We're meditating. I'm going through this whole deep meditation, and we're sitting, and look what comes into the circle. This is one photograph, by the way. It's just showing different parts. So we're sitting there meditating, and this is a Peruvian medical doctor who is having an enlightenment experience of her third eye opening and enlightenment, and look at it come in and wrap around her and goes up. Wow. That is just one still photograph. Nice. Beautiful.
That's really good.
Yeah. Welcome to our world. You should come on these expeditions. So this is, I do them a few times a year. And that was just you can see the ocean back there. Beautiful experience. And she told us afterwards what happened. And it was this experience of contact with a very advanced interstellar civilization. But at the same time, they helped her have this breakthrough in her opening of her third eye and her remote viewing capability and an experience of cosmic consciousness. So they were helping her. She's a wonderful woman. Next. And this is pretty typical things that happened all over the world. We were up at 𝗬𝗏𝗶𝗶𝗃 Hill near Alton Barnes where so many crop circles had appeared, and we're in circle, and this comes up. Looks like the sun. This looks light. It's actually like 10 or 11 at night. The camera ISO is set so it looks like daytime. And this beautiful spherical craft appears, and you see people turning around trying to see it. It's quite beautiful. And I don't know if it was this year or it was a subsequent year, when I was up there doing the Sanskrit ceremony and meditating, they allow cows all over this meadow up on top of 𝗬𝗏𝗶𝗃 Hill. They all came around and they knelt down and sat down around us and meditated with us through the whole process. And when it was over, they got up and wandered off. So even animals and nature will respond to that state of consciousness. Yes, that's beautiful. Next. So this is, we're looking in a crop circle. This is my hand, and I say there's an object, there's a spacecraft, sphere of this people from another star system. Now, with the naked eye, you're not seeing this, but you can, as you zoom in on it, you'll see this beautiful kind of golden, has a bit of a little bit of blue and red aura around it, craft, a ship that is in a trans-dimensional energy field. This, if it actually expanded into 3D, from trans-dimensional out of the gap, fully materialized, would have been a huge spacecraft. But it's just only in that form. And all the people I've dealt with in military and Air Force folks have seen craft go into this form and from this form expand out into full 3D. So there's this plasticity of space that we need to remember. It's not as rigid as you think. Here it is. You can see some blue. This is a normal setting, high quality Nikon camera taken this picture. Next. Next. This is beautiful because I'm doing this ceremony called a puja, and we're in a crop circle, and this weird thing appears. It's like a trans-dimensional structure, and this blue light. We had no blue lights out with us, and this is and there's this with a point, and the whole puja set is enveloped in this cobalt blue light. It was after we had done, the green light is the LED of one of our radar detectors that we put there to pick up any trans-dimensional electronics as sort of an early warning system or early notification system. But it's quite beautiful. And we have many of these objects that come all around us, in the circle, through us, and have really beautiful messages. I mean, often this will be happening while we're having a message from these other civilizations. Next. This is beautiful because this is on this land I had in Crestone, Colorado, and there's an object that lifts up and stops right here. This is one photograph, and it comes straight up from the land we're on, where we're doing our contact, goes up amongst the stars and stops, and it's a trans-dimensional light shift. Now, one thing I haven't shared, because it gets a bit too far into the weeds and I lose people here, the very advanced civilizations, their craft and the people on board are so seamlessly integrated that the craft transmit the level of consciousness of the occupants. That's how advanced the technologies are. So you'll have an experience with a craft and you'll experience the level of consciousness and even the personality, even though it's a spaceship. But we're talking about AI that would make Silicon Valley fall apart into ecstasy. But you know, artificial intelligence and consciousness interfacing technologies at that level, at the interstellar level, at civilizations 4, 5, 6 and above. So that's beautiful. Next. And this is interesting. We're out there setting up. It's still daytime. And I say there's a ship over by the creek. And this is coming down from the Tibetan stupa that the Dalai Lama asked Ambassador George, who is on our team and a friend, to build in Crestone. And look what comes. It just illuminates, and it's just barely in this dimension, but very golden. So the man takes his camera, just takes a normal picture, and there it is. Right. There's nothing. This is out in the wilderness. The Great Sand Dunes would be right back here, if you know where that is in Colorado, southern Colorado. Next. And this I love. This, we're on the beach in Marco Island. And we're here making contact. This is like 10 feet in front of me. And this comes in, you can see the light, and look how it starts as this point. And in that walnut-shaped object was a whole group of ETs that then, in their sort of astral electronic bodies, if you can understand, visualize astral projection, but with electronic level. They spread out around that whole area, and then we had several hundred points of blue-white light that we filmed for 2 or 3 hours that were the essences of these beings. That videotape is stunning. But of course it was night vision, so we didn't get color. So, and then this was in Australia, and there's this someone's using a camera that was adjusted for, I think, infrared. I don't do photography. I don't take credit for any of this, except for making contact. But I mean, I don't do the mechanical stuff. You know, all I do with cameras is break them, or hand them to a nurse, help me with it. I mean, you know how doctors are. So next, you know, it's this strange object here, but this is so cool. So there was this comes in, and it's just it's multiple lights. Now this, you can't see any color, but we could see the color of this ship. It was very close. These are all multicolored lights bleeding into each other. Blue, golden, red. Next. And then this is beautiful. This was in last year in Arizona, up in the mountains. And this.
Big burst of light over there.
Now, it's really beautiful. There was a beautiful light that appeared here. They're golden. You can't see it with this. This is an iPhone hooked to a night vision. And this last time we were there last month, in May, there were at least 60 or 70 of these huge golden ships that appeared. They got filmed, but this hat doesn't have that prepared in it. But it was just like that. So it's quite remarkable. Next. And then we were at Joshua Tree about a year and a half ago or so. It'll be 2 years in September, I believe. And we have a man who's a medical doctor who does great photography with infrared. He has a still camera. And it was way past when any satellites were visible. And there were 2 points of light that moved over us. And with his camera, he captured this. Now you take these are stars, of course. And it's a few second time lapse. Let's see the next one. And you see this structure, all this. So it's sort of coming in and out of this dimension. This happened about, I think, 4 or 5 nights in a row, way after any satellites would be visible. Very unusual structure that came over. Next. This is the same one. Again, beautiful. Almost like a platform in space. Next. On this is beautiful. This happened last year up in Arizona in Oracle. And this is our group. And let me explain this before we go on. These are stars. This is a hillside, obviously. This is our group. It's a man named David Marconi was with us, he wrote Enemy of the State with Will Smith. So he's on our team. And he had a camera that was pointed in my direction in that part of our circle after we had done the meditation, because we had heard footsteps that were not corporeal. You'd look back, couldn't see anything, but then you'd hear something moving. And some people were touched. And at one point, he had his camera, had the lens open. It was on a tripod, very high quality camera. And we saw this reddish, I mentioned this earlier, like a teardrop shaped red orb, but it was elongated, flash in between 2 people. And it flashed in, and almost everyone looking in that direction saw it with their naked eye. His camera captured the ET, and it's this being. This is not a human. Next picture. And this is an enhancement. You can see it sort of gets pixelated, but there's a black bubble that he's in. This is the head. It's kind of triangular. The tunic sort of draped and has some sort of electronic device here. This is his hand here. And this is one eye, this is the other, the nose. Very angular, triangular head. There's a man you can make out just barely right here. This is a man who right beside him had his hearing permanently fixed. Next picture. Oh, well, and this you can see as well. It's beautiful. Next. We'll go back. I want people to see that again. The interesting thing about this is a little pixelated. There's a better picture somewhere, but I want to point out nose, eye, head is partially in this trans-dimensional field, kind of tunic. There's something he's holding here. It seems like an electronic device, and this is the man. And there was another person here. But all we saw with the naked eye was this a ruby red teardrop-shaped object. But the lens was open, so we got this. So this is an ET that's from a species that are master healers. And this man was a very sweet, pure-hearted man. And they decided they would correct his hearing loss. And the next day, and I've talked to him recently, he's still totally has no problems with the permanent hearing loss he had had. Next. So this happened the other night up on Mount Shasta, and we were up there. What's interesting, I don't know if it's, can we see it with these clique lights or whatever they're called, but there's, it comes in and wraps around, comes out of the field behind us. This is a tree, of course, in the Milky Way. And it comes in, this is one frame. There you go. I don't know all these lights behind the thing, fluorescently lit. But it comes in here and does a loop and comes back and materializes. This beautiful, beautiful craft. And you can see the path of it, but it actually originated from right behind where I was sitting in the field up on Mount Shasta. Now, of course, we've had thousands of these experiences, and it's this beautiful golden light ship that appeared. And that was just the other night up on Mount Shasta. Next. So I think that's it, right? So this is just not everything. We have thousands of these. It's to give you an example, and the lights can come back up. We can leave this up if you'd like. An example of the sorts of experiences we have. It's beautiful, celestial level interfacing with this dimension from an extraterrestrial source. So beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed those. Were those fun? Yeah.